Section 5. 19th century Russian theater. Nikolai Gogol's The Government Inspector. The Government Inspector, which was written in 1835, was said to have been inspired by a suggestion from the great poet and dramatist Alexander Pushkin. At the time Gogol was writing his novel, he is best known for Medved Dushin 1-2, 1842, Dead Souls. Gogol's incredible ability at comedic presentation, Laponin, of human and social verbs earned him the appellation the Russian Dickens. A playful exposer of the defects of human character. As a great Russian novelist, dramatist, satirist, and influenced by a Sorelian spirit, he founded the so-called critical realism in Russian literature. Gogol carefully but humorously caricatures Russian society of the 19th century in The Government Inspector. The mayor of a remote provincial Russian town holds an emergency meeting with his cabinet members in his house to intimate them with the unpleasant news of the visit of an inspector general from Petersburg with secret orders to assess the province. He is visiting incognito. The mayor suggests some plans to his cabinet to cover the apparent official ineptitude and gross corruption that characterize his government. Lestakov, a pretty official from the capital who is on his way to visit his uncle in Saratov, arrives in the town and checks into the hotel. He has no money, having lost everything but the shirt of his bag to drink and gambling cards. At the point his credit gets used up and the hotel proprietor reports him to the provincial official with the purpose of getting him thrown into jail for his inability to pay his bills, the unusual happens. The people of the town, beginning with the corrupt mayor, his wife Anna Andreeva, Maya Antonovna, takes Lestakov for the much talked about and dreaded bureaucrat. The government inspector being expected on official business to assess and report the ongoing in the province. Members of the mayor's cabinet caught, swindle and cajole in the effort to outwit one another. They bribe and seduce the government inspector with money, and the mayor's beautiful daughter married off to him in order that he may write a favorable report on their performance. Lestakov happily adapts to his new role and exploits the situation. Whatever pleasure comes the young impostor's ways, he welcomes and makes the best of it. Shortly after his departure, or more or less escape from the provincial town, his true identity is revealed. The mayor, his family, and members of his cabinet realize they have been fooled. At this point, a tall, mustached gendarme dressed like a soldier enters to announce the arrival of His Excellency, the real Inspector General. Setting. The immediate setting is a remote provincial Russian town. The government inspector is historically set in the unusual bureaucracy of the 19th century Russian government. While commenting on the social setting and reality which inform the play, and that he artistically responds to, the playwright declares, in The Government Inspector, I tried to gather in one heap all that was bad in Russia through the regular practice of bribery and extortion. In the Russian society represented in The Government Inspector, the public officials tyrannized the local population of Russian town through extreme bureaucratic red tapes. It is the case of an otherwise great nation choked by the tyranny of government officials and officialdom. The organizing motive of the play is a mistaken identity. It involves a vagabond, Lestakov, who is mistaken by corrupt village officials for a high government official in charge of assessing the performance of others. At the center of the conflict are, on the one hand, the mayor, a cunning official, his wife and daughter, and on the other hand Lestakov, a non-entity who in error is taken to be the inspector incognito. The panicky provincial officials collectively and individually try to curry the inspector's flavor through bribery in the bid to cover their despicable tracks. The thrust of the comedy is largely sustained by the officials' attempt to outwit one another, and as each tries to wriggle out of the inspector's prying eyes by implicating the other. A historical study. Quite a lot of references on the history of the c-19th century Russian society abound in the government's inspector, such that they pose a challenge in assessing the overall message of the play. The references demand a thorough understanding in relation to the topicality of the government inspector in order to appreciate the full thematic implications of Gogol's play. Nikolai Gogol's The Government Inspector is informed by the unusual bureaucracy of the 19th century Russian government. The play is basically a satirical comment on the moral atrophy of the elite ruling class, as well as the intellectuals of the 19th century Russian society. The playwright satirizes and lampoons the stupidity as well as the corruption that have become endemic and that have reached a ridiculous peak among the bureaucratic officials, the rich and the peasants of the Russian society. The relevance of the thematic preoccupations of the play to the contemporary reality is that they are also applicable to most developing nations of the world, Africa in particular. Events and their significance. Act 1. The mayor and other local government officials discuss the visiting government inspector and exploit the possibility of initiating a grand design to cover up the extent of their corruption. The problem with the visit is that since the Petersburg official is visiting incognito, there is a likelihood to be caught unawares. To prevent this is the reason for the emergency meeting. George asserts that he is not concerned about the government inspector because the legal system is incapable of coping with the situation. The playwright adopts a methodical approach to the characterization process. In this scene, we encounter each officer, hear what the mayor as the provincial head says about each officer, listen to what they say about one another, and through what they do we begin to form our opinion on each officer and on the entire cabinet. Each ministry is a picture of gloom, moral decadence, self-centeredness, culminating in the mockery of the essence of governance, which includes selfless service and purposeful leadership. Through the mayor's remark and chastisement of his officers, it is apparent that he is very familiar with every officer's lethargy and degree of moral decay. He seems to know what Petersburg expects of himself and his entire cabinet, but chooses to close his eyes to the dismal performance of his entire cabinet in office. This is because he is equally culpable. The lives and the welfare of the citizenry are not priority to the provincial government. It is evident also that such an official visitation and assessment exercise have hardly ever been experienced in the province before now. The remoteness of the location of the province and the failure on the part of Petersburg periodic visitation have contributed to the perpetuation and spread of official corruption, as well as encourage total neglect of the citizenry. Act 2. Yosef Lestakov servants gives a full account of how life has been with him and his master, Mr. Van Alexandrovich Lestakov, who is a junior official from Petersburg since they both left the city 2 weeks ago. Lestakov has engaged in a reckless living style, wine, women, gambling, and etc. All the money sent to him by his father has been squandered. Often he has had to pawn his clothing, etc. in gambling. Now is so broke that he could no longer pay his piled or hotel bills. The proprietor's decision not to serve Lestakov and his servants any food is already having serious effect on Yosef and his master. Besides, the proprietor is reporting the debtor to the police and the mayor of the town. Our first encounter with Lestakov in this scene also confirms all that Yosef has said about his master. The mayor encounters Lestakov, mistaking him for the much expected Petersburg official. Lestakov thinks the proprietor comes to arrest him to be taken to prison. His entire thinking and reaction is centered on his determination not to be thrown into prison on account of the debt he owes the hotel. The mayor on his part tries desperately to impress and please the Petersburg official, who he and a few others of his cabinet that come with him believe Providence has helped them to discover regardless of his coming incognito. The mayor and those that come with him succeed in bribing the Petersburg official. The official gives the impression that it is a loan that intends to refund as soon as he returns to Petersburg. In an attempt to impress the Petersburg official further, the mayor offers to relocate him to a more homely setting by hosting him in his own house. Lestakov, who is enjoying every development, agrees to be hosted by the mayor. The mayor plans to send Peter Dobchitsky, the town landowner, ahead with 2 notes, one to Zemlanikal at the hospital and the other note to inform his wife to prepare the reception for our honored guest. Page 46. She should in addition be ready to receive the guest not with a dinner but a special brand of wine, vodka and some homegrown Madeira. The mayor writes the note, hands them to Dobchitsky, leaves the hotel with his guest and arranges the guest luggage to be brought to his house. This scene is central to the process of characterization in the play. Through Yosef's rather long opening speech complaints, the audience is able to know a lot about Lestakov, his master, who is obviously a delinquent, an obsessed gambler, an alcoholic, a pub crawler, a shameless debtor, a trickster cum swindler, a liar, an opportunist, etc. Through Lestakov similarly long complaints about the reality of a society as well as his subsequent actions, the audience is able to confirm all that Yosef says about him and about the society. If Lestakov represents the average government official in the state capital of Petersburg, then there is hardly any difference in what obtains in the city and in the superb officials' corruption, reckless living and general indiscipline. It is a socio-economic decay which characterized the C-19th Russian society that Gogol, the playwright, attempts to satirize in his play. It is revealed through Lestakov and Yosef that the C-19th Russian society, as represented in the play, is largely a classed and or capitalist one, with a wide gap between the haves and have-nots, the rich and the poor, that the society is obsessed with the acquisition of wealth by all means, that the society worships money and position, that the rich can get away with anything including murder, a society of cheats and exploiters, a society that had lost its conscience and in which the poor can hardly survive, etc. It is also evident that, given Yosef's remarks on his master's reckless life and lack of financial prudence, among other things, he is more intelligent than his master. Lestakov, page 36. Of significance is the apparent reversal of fortune which occurs to Lestakov. Rather than being arrested and thrown into jail, he suddenly finds himself being given a VIP reception and treatment by the same people who could have issued his warrant of arrest and committed to prison. Rather than being harassed by his creditors and turned into a homeless beggar, he is overwhelmed with money and unmerited favor. he becomes the special guest of the mayor, the choicest of the mayor's room. Act 2. 1. Dutch Sky arrives at the mayor's house, reports on the visitor. His information is largely mulled up, but sufficient enough to excite Anna and Mazia, mother and daughter respectively. Yosef arrives at the mayor's house carrying a trunk that belongs to his master. Through an informal interview with Yosef, more incredible information about his master emerges, making mother and daughter itching to see the general. The guests enter with the host and others. Apparently, the team has had lunch at the community hospital. Now in the house of the mayor, the special guest is being served with special wine while his mouth runs unchecked. Here, one observes what seems like a hide-and-seek game of deceit, subterfuge, hypocrisy, and trickstery between the mayor, host of his special guest, the Petersburg official. Lesterkov, for example, the mayor rates his cabinet as the best among its contemporaries for selfless service to the people, vigilance, good government, effective healthcare delivery system, and that it does not engage in a game of cards, gambling, etc. Curious enough, the charity commissioner, Sese, one of the members of the mayor's cabinet, is not in the least impressed by great men and diplomats as associates, that he is a great friend of pretty actresses, that he is author of a number of great literary works, and that he earns as much as 40,000 rubles a year as editor, etc. On one occasion, Maya almost punctures Lesterkov's false claim of authorship or editorship, but for the quick and courteous intervention of Anna, her mother, for fear of upsetting their guest. Lesterkov towards the end of the scene is so drunk that he is gone tipsy and incoherent. He is urged to prevent from falling. The scene provides information first on the home front. At the domestic level, Anna and Maya, mother and daughter respectively, are engaged in anities or vainglory. Their major concern is looking good in some choice dresses. Second, the scene reveals the true nature of the principal characters. The mayor, host, and Lesterkov, his guest, as birds of the same feather. Both men are tricksters of the same stock. This is confirmed as both engage each other in pseudo hide-and-seek game of tall lies and wild claims. Deceit and subterfuge examples. The mayor, in addition to bribing Lesterkov, plans to knock him off with vodka and a very strong local wine, Madeira. This, according to the mayor, would make it possible for him to work on his guest. It is also implied that the mayor, in his desperate bid to save his job and have a favorable report on his administration, may have had its mind to use his beautiful daughter as a bait to seduce the Petersburg official. This, many critics believe, could have informed his playing host to the important guest. The information about the hospital and the general healthcare delivery system provided by the mayor is false. The impression being created about a people's government, selfless service, transparency, etc. is all a ruse. Lesterkov is not only any better, his wide claims about authorship of great literary works, his huge income as editor, his powerful connection with the military, as well as people in power, etc., are further testimony. It is observed that the apparent nervousness and or hesitation Lesterkov soon disappears as he consciously and cleverly weaves himself into the syntax of his new role of a conquistador, a role he occasionally overplays, thereby overreaching himself. One can safely speculate that a folktale game similar to the common tug of war between a big animal, the elephant, who counts on his size, and the small animal, the trickster, tortoise, who trusts in his wit, has commenced. The mayor, the big animal, relies on his old trick and seems to be succeeding, at least up to this point. The bribe he and some members of his cabinet offers the visitor is unusual birth. The daughter and perhaps the wife, who seems to be very excited, playing hostesses to the august visitor, all culminating in Lextakov apparent drunkenness, a clear indication that the mayor is in the lead. It must be a race. The ultimate winner, who is yet to emerge, may finally be revealed as the plot unfolds further. At 3. 1. Lestakov, according to the mayor, has given in at last, told us a good deal more than necessary. Page 60. Now he is sleeping, having had too much alcohol. The mayor takes necessary precaution to ensure that nothing disturbs or wake him up. A little but unwarranted argument develops between Anna and Maya, mother and daughter respectively, over which of them the young official from Petersburg seems to have preference for. Anna asserts her motherhood on her daughter Maya. The mayor ponders on a number of claims by his guests and considers them incredible. He seems to be satisfied with the development so far. Already, the mayor's efforts are yielding results to the degree that he has been able to douse the general fear of uncertainty and of any possible threat to his official as provincial head. He assumes to be getting along well with the Petersburg official. The mother and daughter inquire for information about Letskov preference on matters relating to ladies or women and love life from Yosef, and since much enquiries are apparently irrelevant to the mayor's immediate plan or need, he dismisses them both for being preoccupied with inanities and for causing unnecessary distraction. The mayor takes over the enquiries from the two ladies in a manner that suggests a determination to completely achieve his objective. Yosef shows an impressive degree of intelligence in the way he answers the mayor's queries. He sees every opportunity to feather his own nest. His cleverness pays off in the end. He receives a double gratification from the mayor so that he could give his master Lestakov a favorable report on account of the mayor's hospitality and benefaction, which he, like his master, has benefited immensely from. Who bears the cards seems to be the question agitating the mind of the mayor and some members of the cabinet. Having agreed to bribe the young official from Petersburg, they all mistake for Ivan Alexandrovich. No one seems to be courageous enough or willing to go inside the room where the official is and offer bribe to the dreaded officer for fear of such a criminal act being counted against whoever does. In the process, they constitute a rowdy bunch like some school children. Lestakov wakes up, discusses Anna and her daughter Maya with Yosef. It is assumed that, going by the impression already created by Lestakov in the two ladies, he can have their hearts just for the asking. But characteristics of Lestakov, he finds it rather difficult to make up his mind on which of the two ladies he should settle for. As events will show shortly in the scene, George enters to see Lestakov. After some initial fumbling, he manages to drop some money, which Lestakov picks up immediately, drawing the attention of the judge, supposedly that it dropped in error. George gladly forgoes the money, although Lestakov insists he could rather have it as a loan, since he lost all he had on card gaming in the course of his journey from Petersburg. George leaves, and local Lukic, the school superintendent's SS, enters rather timidly. A more confident Lestakov offers him a cigar, questioning him on the preference for women, etc. Finally, Lestakov requests for a loan of 400 rubles, which he promises to refund as soon as he gets home. The SS graciously hands over the money to Lestakov and exits. Semyonikal, the charity commissioner, enters Lestakov's room next. Lestakov acknowledges the good lunch the former gave him. The CC, in a holier than thou fashion, run down all his colleagues besides him, who in his self-estimation is most zealous. All his other colleagues are rogues, incompetent, adulterers, cheats, exploiters, extortionists, gluttons, and largely morally bankrupt, etc. Finally, before the CC takes his exit, Lestakov requests for a loan of 400 rubles, which he gladly obliged him. Bob and Dob, coming together next. Request for a loan by Lestakov from both does not yield any positive result. Rather, while treating it dismissively, they come up with their own unusual requests. Dob, for example, wants his eldest son, who was born outside wedlock, to be given a legal status of a legitimate child. Bob, on his part, wants his name mentioned to the noble's back in Petersburg. Apparently, Lestakov seems to realize just then that he is being mistaken for some official. It sounds incredible and newsworthy. He decided to contact a journalist friend through a letter and inform him about his experience, although he is no longer sure of his contact address. Joseph is now apprehensive of the strange development, the sudden change of fortune of social status notwithstanding. He considers it too risky to delay any further in the town should the real Ivan Alexandrovich arrive the town just then. He urges his master that they both should leave town immediately. Lestakov characteristically procrastinates, insists that they wait till the next day. He writes his letter and hands it to Joseph. Some of the townspeople, in particular shopkeepers, merchants, bring their petitions to the Petersburg official, Lestakov. The petition concerns atrocity committed by the mayors against the citizenry, while some want him removed and some want him charged to court. Others want him fined for his many heinous crimes. On each occasion, regardless of the gravity of the crimes allegedly committed against the complainants, Lestakov still asks for his usual loan request of 400 rubles or less, which the petitioner generously give in the hope that he will do something drastic about their petition. Lestakov attempts to exploit the innocence of Maya by making love advances to her. Anna, Maya's mother, comes in just in time to find Lestakov on his knee, presumably pleading for Maya's love. Anna sends Matya out of the room. Lestakov dramatically switches to Anna, attempts to seduce her. Lestakov to Anna: "No, it is you I love." Page 76. He is still on his knees when Maya bursts into the room, to the embarrassment of the mother. Anna scolds Maya for misbehaving like a 3-year-old again. Lestakov, in a rather very dramatic manner, holds Maya's hand and begs for her mother's blessing, as in a former marriage. As agitated mayor enter, apparently disturbed by the fact that the townspeople have come to lodge series of complaints on him to Alexandrovich, he makes a desperate effort to dissuade his guests from believing all the allegations made against him by the town people. It is difficult to follow his logic. His defense confirms further that the allegations are true. At first, the mayor finds it difficult to believe his wife, Anna, when she informs him about the request of their guests to have the hand of their daughter in marriage. As soon as the picture becomes quite clear, he speedily grants his approval. What a change in things. Page 78. Joseph enters to inform his masters that the horses meant for his departure are ready. The mayor is surprised by the sudden decision, but is pleased to the degree that his guest's departure is in connection with the proposed marriage between Maya and his host, who must seek his rich uncle's blessing before he goes ahead with the marriage. The The mayor provides an additional 400 rubles to take care of Lestakov's need on the one-day journey, although the latter likes to assume it is an additional loan taken for the purpose of making a round figure of 800 rubles. When asked why he chooses to go in an ordinary public chaise, he replies, "I prefer it. Spring make my head ache." Page 79. A Persian rug is provided for the comfort of the in-law to be. A. I wish I knew how much of all that stuff he told us was true. But why shouldn't it be? He probably threw it in a few fibs. Nothing is ever said without a few fibs. Page 59. B. Distinguished people ought to be something to look at, but this little whippersnapper might be anybody. Page 16. C. How he kept it up at the inn and concocted all those stories and taradiddles that a century couldn't make sense of. Page 60. D. But is giving in at last. Since these statements are made by the mayor suggesting his candid opinion on and general impression of Lestakov, one is likely to conclude that the mayor is quite observant and intelligent, a second administrator and trickster who owns his onion. By implicating statements A and C are indicative of the mayor's awareness of Lestakov's incredible lies, probably to impress his audience. He also believes that the effect of the alcohol must have been largely responsible for this. B suggests that the mayor definitely expects a better decorum from his guest as a respected official from Petersburg. An officer of the guest stature is expected to be a role model, a highly cultured and charismatic man, both in carriage and leadership style. All this he could not find in his guest, making him to conclude that his guest might just have been anybody. Statement D suggests that his plan is already yielding result, far beyond what he hitherto has anticipated. The mayor no doubt has an agenda to get his guests drunk with alcohol in order to extract from him as much information as he may find very useful, and to facilitate a favorable report on his administration and province. According to him, when a man's in drink, it all comes out. What is in the heart comes out of the mouth. There is a deliberate suspense created by the playwright, which is meant to create the impression that Lestakov gimmicks as an impostor is about to expose or reveal. Furthermore, one gets the impression that since the mayor seems to know this much or suspects his guest that much, he is not likely to fall any further for Lestakov subterfuge and tricks. The suspense is further intensified by the fact that the audience might just as well anticipate an abrupt end of the play any moment from now, since it seems Lestakov is about to be caught off guard. Yosef, like his master, is also taking full advantage of his sudden change of fortune by cleverly feeding on his own nest. It is important to find out why the journalist Chryapichin does not have a fixed address. Page 70. It is simply because of the fear of being arrested or detained over the flimsiest excuse, like writing on a subject that the government might regard as embarrassing publication. The Russian government was apparently hostile to the press to the degree that there was neither press freedom nor freedom of expression during the same period. The mayor, acting on the prompting of Yosef, offers the latter some gratifications in order to have a favorable report when the issue of welfare of Yosef gets to his master. No doubt the mayor and members of his cabinet were aware of the fact that taking and giving a bribe is illegal. They also know that, given their dismal performance in government, the only option left for them, if a positive report about them must get to Petersburg, is to bribe the official from the headquarters. Their dilemma, therefore, is how should they go about it without making look as if they are trying to corrupt the official? How must they do it without the official taking offense at such a gesture? In other words, who bails the cat? These are part of the question agitating the minds of the mayor and his team. The same awareness of the illegality of bribery, whether taken or offered, informs Lestakov insistence on taking whatever is offered or given him as loans. The daughter is quite good looking, and I think the mother is ready for anything. Page 63. Speaks volume. It may interest one to take a look at some of what the statement might suggest. The judge at last goes first to bribe the official from Petersburg. Order follows suit. It is important to note the method adopted by each provision member in giving bribe to the Petersburg official. Of significance, the CC, a highly corrupt man, a mischief maker, and a gossip, playing the saint while every other person down, and the duo Bobchitsky and Dobchitsky, who though contribute as little as 65 rubles, page 68 and 90, do not see any reason to bribe or grant any loan, no matter how little the amount, to the Petersburg official. Rather, they make their own request and extract a promise from the great official from the city to legitimize a child born out of wedlock, and to let those in government, the highly influential aristocrats, know that a Bobchitska exists somewhere in the remote corner of the state. Two things are observable immediately. One suspects that 19th century Russian legislation could not have favored children that were born out of wedlock, and Gogol, in a rather subtle manner, satirizes this very important issue. Similarly, one gets the feeling that arising from the agitated Bolshinska, the poor masses that constitute the majority in Russian society were neither reckoned with nor catered for during the same period. The implication of Bolshinska's request is the need to recognize the existence of the poor masses and accommodate their need and general welfare in the scheme of things. The timely warning given by Yosef that it was time he and his master left Berberi, they are discovered to be impostors and cheats, suggests that he is a wiser person than his master, regardless of his low social status. It leads to another crucial point that Gogol is trying to make in the play. The fact that the masses may be poor and trodden upon does not detract from recognizing that they are a bunch of intelligent people. The playwright has shown that people of very low social status are often more intelligent or clever than those who, by virtue of their social status, think they are superior. The main plot, which involves Lestakov and Yosef on the other hand, and the mayor and his cabinet on the other hand, is a good example. Similarly, at the subplot level, one finds Yosef's sense of judgment and or quality of discourse, when silhouetted against his master's, much more logical. Lestakov's statement, "They seem to have taken me for somebody very important in the government," page 69, by implication means that it does not set out deliberately to swindle or cheat. His behavior up to this point of self-realization is likely guided by the understanding that it must be the way by which the community treats its visitors. His servant further confirms that it must be the way by which the community treats its visitors. His father further confirms this. Yosef immediately sees the inherent danger. Should the people realize that Lestakov is not the much expected Petersburg official, it is the reason for Yosef's advice that they must escape immediately from the town before the people detect their true identity. The petitions by the townspeople, in particular the merchants, and the later the women, constitute the true window onto the reality of C-19 Russian society. Corrupt officials extorting, exploiting, stealing, molesting, killing, and maiming the helpless. Season 3. Unlawful detention of innocent people and general abuse of office by government officials. The people desperately desire an intervention by any means for equity and justice. It reveals, in addition, how corrupt officials swap people in the course of army recruitment. Page 71 to 74. Siberia, a distant and severely cold part of the country, also features as a purgatory for offenders or lawbreakers during the same period. Matya and Anna, our mother, in a way represents the 19th century women, ladies in the hinterland of Russia, very excited by whatever comes from the city, which they consider as the standard, therefore worthy of emulation. They also would like to be associated with anything that has to do with aristocrats. Hence, their anxiety and excitement the moment the August Victor arrives their home. Maria is definitely not a cheap girl. Rather, she is innocent and very intelligent. She reacts sharply when she perceives that the guest is almost taking undue advantage of her simplicity or innocence. You think because I am a country girl that tries to get away, you are just making fun of us poor provincials. Page 75. Besides, she is the first to notice some irregularities in one of the white claims of Lestakov. Anna, then Yuri Miloskavi must be your work too. Helest, yes, that's another. Anna, but mommy, it says on the cover that a Mr. Zagoskin wrote it. Page 56. Apparently, Hannah is not as quick-witted as her daughter, Maria. She obviously has a weakness, and Lestakov seems to have observed her correctly. Ready to do anything, but I don't know why. But I like this kind of life. Page 77. She's ready to be Lestakov mistress, from all indication. This is presumably so because it is a common practice in the society. This is evidence in the CC report on the illicit affair between the judge and Dobskin's wife, and the allegation that all Dobskin's children resemble the judge and not Dobsky. Page 66 and 67. 5. Lestakov attempts to seduce Marcia and later her mother, Anna, in view of the excitement exhibited by the two ladies, but it almost upturns his game of double deals. Although he wriggles cleverly out of the problem as quickly as he can, he finally settles for Maria and asks for her hand in marriage, to which her parents immediately grant approval. Act 3. 2. The mayor, wife and daughter are seen relishing their sudden fortune in a manner comparable to building one's castle in the air. The mayor and his wife now are about to be in-laws of a very important government dignitary, are seen mapping and rehearsing what their immediate future is likely to be. By virtue of being in-laws of an influential personage, they now begin to enjoy the presumed elevated status. The mayor sent for those merchants who are dared to write petitions against him, and vows to deal more ruthlessly with them and others. The merchants arrive and are tongue-lashed by the mayor. They plead for pardon. Congratulatory messages pour in from the cabinet members as well as a number of people. While relishing the euphoria of the assumed new status of the general in waiting, as more congratulatory messages pour in, the postmaster enters, apparently dazed with some strange discovery. After much prayer from the anxious listener, including the mayor, the postmaster clumsily presents a letter purportedly written by the Petersburg official to a friend. It is discovered that they all have been fooled, swindled. Besides, the impostor has some uncomplimentary things to say about everyone in the mayor's cabinet. A tall man dressed in army uniform bursts into the room to announce the arrival of the actual Inspector General, and that he, His Excellency, requires the presence of the visibly shaken mayor. There is a reversal of fortune for the mayor, who is now to be the in-law of a very important personage. A new social status he proudly relishes, to the envy of many. It is evident that the mayor is obsessed with acquisition of power by any means, certainly not to improve the life of the citizenry, but for selfish ends. This is a graphic representation of the reality of the 19th century Russian ruling class, which among other things Gogol satirizes in the play. The mayor is a racist, hence his invectives and acerbic verbal attack on non-Russians, the goat-bearded Jews. The hatred he has for the Jewish merchants is undisguised. It approximates the impression of the Russian officials and even the Germans. Although the play does not include this fact, but it culminated in the destruction of well over 6 million Jews in the gas chamber on Hitler's order during the World War II. The mayor is vindictive, promises to use his new position to deal ruthlessly with all his detractors, especially Jewish merchants. The mayor and his wife, Anna, in manners, attitude and courage, compare favorably with the protagonist, Don Quixote, of the great classical Spanish novel titled Don Quixote de la Mancha, Part 1, 1605, Part 2, 1615, written by Miguel de Cervantes, the adventure of a country gentleman driven mad by reading chivalric romances of horse-riding heroic knights, fighting battles, fighting dragons, etc. Quixote not only believes the stories as factual, he dreams of being a horse-riding knight and actually lives out the dream by acquiring a frail-looking horse, dressing up like some ill-equipped knight, and literally going out in search of battles and dragons. His mission ended up in a total disaster when, in the course of his epic journey, he comes across some windmills and he launches an attack with his rake like lance on them because he thinks there must be some dragons. In this case, the mayor is Don Quixote, obsessed with power. His hubris, wants to be a general. Unfortunately, he lacks what it takes to be a real general, and so his tragedy is predictable. Similarly, Anna, who seems to share her husband's dream of being a general's wife, is also to share of her husband's fate. The Sissy and the judge are not in the least impressed. This is evident in their size. Page 85-86. Although the play is not a tragedy in the strict sense of the term, it has its own unique form, and its plot shares a number of features with the classical Greek Aristotelian drama. In the course of the development of the plot, there are recognizable features similar to, but not quite in the order of the classical Greek tragedy. The betrothal is the climax. The discovery is the revelation of the true identity of the impostor, Lestakov. It leads to denouement, that is, a reversal of fortune, such that rather than be feared because of his newly acquired social status, the mayor, his wife and daughter are now being pitied, most of all for their foolish and general loss. Psychosocial pain, public embarrassment, as well as material loss. Page 91. The announcement of the arrival of the re-inspector general marks the anticlimax. The moral lesson, didactic import, are similar to those that can be drawn from some popular folk trickster narrative in which a small animal like tortoise or deer or spider or toad, or in the case of Western literature, Brer Rabbit, challenges a much bigger animal like a hippo or elephant or ox or dog to a race or a tug-of-war competition, etc. In each case, the overconfident bigger animal loses for relying on his size and strength. The smaller animal wins the competition using his weight. In the play under reference, Lestakov, a more junior officer, outwits the mayor and others. The confession of the mayor is apposite here. How could I have been a fool. After 30 years in the service, I have never been taken in my life. Not a tradesman, not a contractor has ever got the better of me. Never. I have swindled the swindlers by the thousand, rogues and rascals that could have stolen the whole world. I have tripped them up. I have hoodwinked 3 governors. Not that governors are anything much. Page 91. The overconfident mayor is outwitted by a much less junior officer, like the big animals, who relied so much on their physiognomy and size, and got outwitted by less significant animals. The play is a comedy of errors, to the degree that Gogol, the playwright, employs the very common device of mistaken identity to create a very compelling satirical comedy. The structure of the play is compact, and the pace of action is very swift. This is largely so probably because of the Molière-inspired plot structure. Notwithstanding, the episodes are so closely knitted that, in the words of Belinsky, they are all indispensable parts of one artistic whole, thus constituting self-sufficient worlds of his own. In a manner characteristic of epic drama, popularized later by Bertolt Brecht, characters are deliberately made to swap roles, contrary to existing dramatic traditions. For example, in the conventional drama, only the nobles or the royal or blue-blooded characters are capable of heroic deeds. The commoners or peasants serve as backdrops, fools, nagging wives, gravediggers, etc. In the epic drama, however, the good-for-nothing riffraffs, vagabonds, drunkards, street wolves, and rogues, etc., shock the society by making acting as real human beings that they are, regardless of their social status, and by implication capable of performing heroic deeds. Often, epic dramatics often present this wretched of the earth, to borrow the words of Walter Rodney, as better equipped with superior intelligence than the so-called nobles. It is in this sense that one may begin to appreciate why Gogol creates Lestakov, a drunk and gambler, as a likable character, and why he succeeds in swindling a self-confessed swindler like the mayor, and makes a fool of his wife and daughter, as well as other highly placed people in the province. In the same vein, in the conventional drama, parents and masters are likely to be presented as wiser and better experienced people than their wards or subordinates. In the government inspector, the playwright presents Maya as a wiser and more intelligent people than Anna and Mother. It is also the case with Yosef, Lestakov's servant, who is presented as possessing a more superior intellect than his master. Another area of difference that is noticeable in Gogol's The Government Inspector is the idea of a diffused, in this case, trickster hero, as opposed to a monumental or single hero, which characterizes a conventional drama. Lestakov and his servants, Yosef, rightly qualify as collective or plurimental trickster hero. Indeed, most of the characters, including the mayor, his cabinet members, Anna the mayor's wife, Lestakov and Yosef the merchants, with the exception of a few ones like Ivanovna, wife of a sergeant, and Polishchevskina, wife of the town locksmith, are trickster characters of varying degrees. The opening of the play shows the mayor and his cabinet trying to fine-tune their plans to deceive the expected Petersburg official. A trickster depends on trickcraft. In a trickster drama of this nature, a lot depends on the playwright's unusual sense of humor, imaginativeness, and creativeness. Like its counterparts, oral trickster story narrator, Gogol employs wit, humor, as well as over-exaggeration for effect, thereby presenting a caricature of personages and social reality of his time. Of the characters in the play, the mayor and Lestakov or Yosef stand out. The mayor is a self-confessed swindler, and certainly the duo Lestakov or Yosef constitutes the collective trickster hero for outwitting the mayor and his people. To a great degree, Lestakov or Yosef qualify as the Plumental hero because they are completely in charge of the situation. They detect the pace and the tempo of actions. The playwright in turn determines the characterology, using the characters to define themselves and others, while the audience is made to determine the characters as they individually and or collectively relate to each other and to one another. End of study section 5. Thanks for listening.